Greetings, Mega Man fans, and welcome back to the Mega Man Super Fighting Robot LPA. In this episode, we'll be taking on the magic-wielding Wizard Man, who, incidentally, has a Warcraft reference in his pose. I'm pretty sure what he does there is he casts some... what was it? Arcane Intellect? Arcane Brilliance? I tried to look this up beforehand, but I'm not actually sure which spell it is. Oh well. Anyway, the very start of this level throws us against two new enemy types. We are safe here, fortunately. Now, Suzy we all know and understand. He's very simple overall, but he serves an additional purpose, giving us an incentive to shoot. Because, as it turns out, Wizard Met fires a shot anytime you press down the fire button. And Wizard Met's little energy waves will block your shot. Meaning, they could be tricky to deal with if you don't handle them with care. And this right here is a screen wrap. Basically, it's a screen wrapping gimmick, really. Any pits marked with these arrows, when you jump into them, will warp you to the corresponding arrows directly above them. This gets a lot of really good use in this level. I really rather like this gimmick. And some money. And oh hey! This is one of my that right there was one of my favorite enemy types in the stage. The Archmage. How the Archmage behaves is he opens his cloak, shoots a spread of 3 fireballs at you, and then attempts to teleport on top of you. Sound familiar? If it doesn't, he basically sounds like a typical Dracula fight from Castlevania, which I can't complain about. Castlevania is a good series. And right here we have Wizard Joe. Probably one of the most annoying enemy types in this stage. How Wizard Joe behaves is he charges a shot, invincible while doing so, and then he drops lightning bolts on your head. Needless to say, being ready to kill a Wizard Joe in seconds is advisable. Because we saw that Wizard Joe deals like, 4 points of damage? So they can kill you rather quickly if you are not careful. Don't underestimate Wizard Joe. And on that note, living books! Ah! I thought I was too old for those! Anyway. Spell tones. These enemies are called spell tones. They're flying living spellbooks that shoot explosive fireballs at you. From what I can tell, the fireballs seem to explode right next to you, assuming you don't shoot to destroy them first. I'm not entirely sure how the spelltone spells behave. That's mostly because if you handle them with a solid degree of precision, it's very possible to snipe pretty much all of them in the stage, rendering the enemy basically useless. Life sucks if you're a spell tone, really. Anyway. Tricky jump, but I made it. And that Wizard Met right there is probably one of the most dangerous Wizard Mets in the stage. Simply because it's a little harder to jump his shot if you're not fighting him in the same careful manner that I'm using right now. And this Wizard Joe is a little easier to deal with than the one before it. Only a little. The reason for that being that in an earlier take, I was fighting that first Wizard Joe and whoops, I managed to respawn the Archmage. Good going. Wizard Joe himself has had kind of a troubled life, for lack of a better term. In the first incarnation of the level that I played, Wizard Joe was basically everywhere. He was used very frequently, and I found it quite irritating. And then he ended up underused. And, well, that obviously doesn't work either. At this point, though, I think he hits the right note in terms of how often he gets used, which is pretty good. And on that note, we have a new enemy and an old friend. This new enemy type is the Frostaff. Originally Frost Rod, but I kept calling it Frostaff while we were in beta, and I'm just like, hey, you should change its name to Frostaff, and it's like, it happened. Why? Because it's Frostaff. Anyway, enough name trivia. How the Frostaff behaves is that it drops icicles. First in a wave of, I think that's supposed to be 7, and then in a wave of 8, every time it spins. The icicles will block your shot. Or at least, if they're supposed to. I think they block normal shots, but they seem to not be blocking charged shots. I don't know. Anyway, the Yoku Blocks here, well, they're Yoku Blocks. This first pattern is a pretty simple one, but this second pattern is a combination of the Yoku Blocks and the screen wrapping gimmick, which basically allows it to pull dirty tricks like that and not be completely cheap, which I actually really appreciate. See, this is the kind of thing Heatman Stage should have done with its Yoku Block segment. I can't be the only one who, even though I'm trying to Buster Only, takes one look at that thing and pretty much goes, ha ha ha, yeah, no, and just uses item 2 instead. In that section, though, you really don't need Rush Jet to get through it, which I can appreciate. Oh, okay, this is happening. Don't touch this Sparky Zappy Pentagram thing. Those do quite a bit of damage. They were originally spikes, but I got quite annoyed at that one because I felt making this section spiky was a difficulty choice more suited for the Fortress stages than it was for a Robot Master stage. Difficulty curve, you know? That being said, I kinda wish I did the same for Coleman stage, but oh well. I admit that section makes me a little nervous. I can get through it a lot faster than I ended up doing, but, you know, nervous. And in this section, don't be fooled by that screen wrap. It is more to your benefit to stay down here. If you fall in the screen wrap, you can miss out on some pretty nice goodies. Namely, an E-Tank and the B letter, as well as a chance to completely avoid fighting a Spell Tome. Or at least attempts to avoid fighting a Spell Tome, but I don't seem to have succeeded. I have been able to... Ow. Okay, I've been able to deal with that before without spawning the Spell Tome, but, this is not one of those instances. Well... I might as well get the goodies up here then, and as demonstrated again, alas, poor Spell Tome, you were easily sniped. I think what I was supposed to do back there to keep the Spell Tome from aggroing was slide down here to dodge the Archmage's shot instead of trying to jump. Oh well. A minor mistake, really. Anyway, moving on. Another easy to kill Spell Tome. And do want to time this jump well. And I was going to kill that Archmage, but I guess not. Now, this Yoku Block section originally didn't have the pentagrams or the screen wrap. Meaning if you screwed up here, you die. As you can imagine, I wasn't very appreciative of that as a concept. Particularly since it had that little cheap shot back there. Fortunately, though, it was changed so that you just took a little damage instead. I'm fine with punishing the player a little bit for screwing up. Just don't punish them a lot. Not unless they're in a fortress stage. Fortress stages tend to be able to get away with that a little more. In this section right here, there's really two different ways to go about it. Either A, you can go about it the way I'm doing and kill off the Susies bit by bit, or you can attempt to try and kill them off while doing the jump. Needless to say though, if you messed up on that last Susie right here, you were dead because you landed on the spikes. The one time in the entire stage where a screw-up can very easily kill you. You know what? Screws. Worth it. Why yes, I'm a horrible pack rat, why do you ask? One thing I should mention, this game actually does have, like, weapon toggles. I just don't use them. Because reasons. And for going over here, I get some extra health, an extra life, and a chance to completely skip a Wizard Joe. Which, overall, I can't complain too much. And that was another Archmage. This Wizard Joe right here is in a particularly nasty location. You do not get a lot of room. You don't get a lot of room to fight him. And as you may or may not have noticed, that was a pretty tight jump right here, and he was already spawned. So if you hesitate too much, you could get a lightning bolt to the face during the jump and not be fully prepared for it. And trust me, that's not fun. Anyway, this Yoku section right here is fairly simple. And then one more Wizard Met, and the boss door. Wizard Man's level is probably one of the more interesting ones. It's a really well-made Yoku Block level. I have to admit, this is probably one of my favorite Yoku levels, period. And I do like the screen wrapping gimmick. That's a pretty neat one. The level can be a little mean in some places, particularly with that Wizard Joe with the pixel-perfect jump right in front of it. But, otherwise, generally a fun level. I think probably the only real complaint I have is that Spell Tome is almost painfully underutilized. If you are playing your cards right, you can render that thing basically a complete non-issue, which is a little disappointing. But, other than that, overall I quite like this level. A lot better than the original incarnation, which had a lot more ways to kill you instantly. Which, well, anyone who's watched my Rock Force playthrough all the way through knows what I think of that concept. Anyway, without further ado, on to Wizard Man himself. Wizard Man is a bit of a tricky boss fight. How he behaves is he will dash at you, and then launch his magic missile, which can be a bit of a tricky dodge. And then after that, either he will repeat the magic missile, or he'll clone himself and launch an elemental spell at you. The spell he uses depends on how much health he has. If he has, oh gosh, I don't even remember the numbers. And right now, for obvious reasons, I can't exactly pay it. Oh, never mind. When his health is an odd number, he'll use the Ice Lance. When his health is an even number, he shoots that fireball. And as you saw, getting hit by the Ice Lance freezes you, and if you get hit by the fireball, you will start burning. Meaning you'll take an extra hit of damage on top of what you've already taken. And as you can tell, he has the ability to perform any of his attack combinations once or twice, depending on what he decides to do. This can get dangerous. And to make matters worse, when Wizardman gets below half health, he switches his control for the spells. Even becomes ice, and fire is now odd. Anyway, while he's a tricky fight, his weapon is actually one of the best ones in the game. It's Magic Missile, which you can use to attack the darkness. You also get Rush Jet. How Magic Missile works, it is a homing missile. It's basically a homing spell that will chain itself between enemies, assuming it survives attacking them. You can also aim it to control what enemy it hits first. It's a really, really, really good homing weapon. I can't complain about it. Magic Missile is good. In fact, and you also get Rush Jet for beating this stage, which is always nice. Always nice. Rush Jet is pretty good, although I don't think this game has a lot of use for it, but oh well. I don't mind that. I tend to not enjoy it when I'm forced to use Rush Jet. Anyway. And with that, that's the end of Wizardman stage. So, on that note, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I shall see you for the next one, where we go for the opposite type of Robot Master again, only this time in terms of intellect. So, until then, goodbye!